The holiday season is often described as magical, a time for joy, togetherness, and cherished traditions. But what if that magic could take a darker turn? As the streets fill with festive lights and the air echoes with laughter, some claim there's an unseen world stirring in the background, one that's far from joyful. The question is, can the holidays bring more than just cheer? In today's video, we'll unravel the chilling tales of people who experience the inexplicable during this seemingly innocent time of year. From a Christmas game that unleashed something sinister to a mysterious figure crashing a New Year's Eve party, these stories are more than fiction. They are real accounts from those who swear by their truth. While the holidays are celebrated for warmth and comfort, they also create the perfect backdrop for the eerie, silent nights, flickering lights, and the feeling of being watched when you're alone. What is it about this time of year that seems to open a door to the unknown? Stay with us as we explore these unsettling stories and ask yourself, could something like this happen to you? As we dive into these tales, share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever felt a chill run down your spine during the holidays? Let's begin. The holiday season has long been associated with joy and merriment, but there's another side to this festive time, one steeped in mystery and the unexplained. From ancient traditions to modern folklore, the idea of the supernatural weaving its way into holiday celebrations isn't new. In fact, it might just be as old as the holidays themselves. Think about it. Winter's long nights, the eerie stillness of snow-covered landscapes, and the hushed whispers of wind through barren trees. These elements create an atmosphere that feels almost otherworldly. In Victorian England, telling ghost stories by the fire on Christmas Eve was a beloved pastime, a tradition immortalized in Charles Dickens's A Christmas Carol. Even today, myths like Krampus, a demonic figure who punishes misbehaving children during Christmas, persist as reminders that not everything about the season is merry and bright. But why does the supernatural feel so closely tied to this time of year? Some believe it's the psychological effect of the holidays themselves. As families gather, emotions run high, both joyful and tense. Combined with the quiet of winter nights, it creates the perfect setting for our minds to wander into the unknown. Others think it's something deeper, an ancient awareness of forces beyond our understanding, a feeling that grows stronger as the year approaches its end. The stories we're about to share tap into these themes. They're not just tales of the inexplicable, they're glimpses into moments where the veil between the ordinary and the extraordinary felt impossibly thin. From unsettling sounds in an isolated house to encounters with uninvited guests, each account reflects how even the most festive moments can harbor a hint of darkness. So, as you light your holiday candles or hang decorations on your tree, take a moment to think about those who felt something unusual. Perhaps their experiences will resonate with you. And now, let's delve into the first story, a Christmas game that went terrifyingly wrong. It was Christmas Eve, a time meant for joy and celebration. A group of friends had gathered at Emma's home, a cozy house adorned with festive lights and the unmistakable scent of pine. After the hearty Christmas dinner, they decided to liven up the night with a game, a Ouija board Emma had found tucked away in her attic. At first, it was all laughter and teasing. The group huddled around the board, their fingers lightly touching the planchette. "Is anyone here with us?" asked one of the friends half-jokingly. For a moment, nothing happened. The planchette remained still, and everyone laughed nervously. But then, without warning, it began to move. "Stop pushing it!" one of them shouted, but the others swore they weren't. Slowly, the board spelled out a name: Anna. The room fell silent. No one recognized the name, but Emma's face turned pale. "That's impossible," she murmured. "Anna was my great-aunt. She used to live here." The tension in the room thickened. Undeterred, one of the friends asked another question. "What do you want?" The planchette moved more quickly now, spelling Leave. A nervous chuckle escaped from the group, but the air had shifted. The room felt colder, and the festive lights seemed to flicker more often than before. As the session continued, strange things began happening. The mirror above the fireplace cracked loudly, sending shards of glass scattering. One of the candles went out on its own. Emma's dog, usually calm, began barking frantically at a corner of the room, his fur bristling as if he could see something they couldn't. Panicking, the group decided to end the game. They said goodbye on the board, as the instructions demanded, and packed it away. But the night was far from over. Around midnight, they heard heavy footsteps upstairs, even though no one was there. Emma gathered the courage to check and found nothing, except the Ouija board, which they had left in the living room, now inexplicably back in the attic. By the next morning, the group had left, shaken by the events of the night. Emma, however, couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't alone in the house anymore. Strange occurrences continued throughout the following weeks, doors opening on their own, objects moving, and the persistent sound of footsteps at odd hours. She eventually moved out, leaving the Ouija board behind in the attic, where she first found it. To this day, she wonders if Anna was trying to protect her, or warn her of something far worse. The winter holidays were supposed to be a quiet escape for the Peterson family. They had rented a remote cabin in the mountains, far from the chaos of the city. It was picture perfect, snow-covered trees, a warm fire crackling in the hearth, and a view that seemed pulled from a postcard. But what they hoped would be a peaceful getaway quickly turned into something they would never forget. On their first night, everything seemed normal. The family of four, Mark, his wife Sarah, and their two children, Lily and Jacob, gathered around the fireplace to play board games and drink hot cocoa. Outside, the snow fell gently, and the only sounds were the occasional creak of the wooden beams and the wind whistling through the trees. But as the hours passed, strange things began to happen. It started with faint tapping sounds on the windows. At first, they thought it might be the wind or branches swaying in the storm, but the taps were rhythmic, deliberate, and moved from one window to another, as if someone or something was circling the cabin. Mark went outside with a flashlight to check, but there were no footprints in the snow. The forest was silent. The next morning, the family tried to laugh off the previous night's events, attributing them to an overactive imagination. But the unease lingered. Lily, the youngest, refused to sit near the windows, claiming she saw a shadow man standing outside. Her parents dismissed it as a child's vivid imagination, though Jacob later whispered to Sarah that he'd seen the same figure but didn't want to scare his sister. That evening, as they were preparing for dinner, the power went out. The cabin plunged into darkness, and the only light came from the dim glow of the fireplace. While Mark scrambled to find candles and flashlights, Sarah noticed something chilling. Their holiday decorations, garlands and ornaments hung meticulously that morning, had been rearranged. Some were now lying on the floor, others hung in completely different places. Then came the footsteps. Slow, deliberate thuds echoed from the upper floor. Mark, trying to maintain his composure, went upstairs to investigate, armed with a flashlight and a kitchen knife. He searched every room, finding nothing out of place, except for one thing. In the children's bedroom, the window was wide open, letting in the freezing air. Mark closed it quickly, but as he turned to leave, he swore he saw a faint outline in the frosted glass, a figure standing just outside. That night, no one slept. The family huddled together in the living room, the fireplace roaring as their only source of light and warmth. Every sound, the wind, the creak of the floorboards, the occasional distant howl, felt magnified. By morning, they packed their belongings and left without hesitation. A few days later, Mark received a call from the cabin's owner. "Did you leave something behind?" the man asked. Confused, Mark said no, but the owner insisted. "I found an old photo under one of the beds. Looks like it's from decades ago. There's a family in it, but the strangest thing is, They're standing in front of the same cabin. Mark asked for the photo to be mailed to him, but it never arrived. The cabin owner claimed it went missing shortly after their call. To this day, the Petersons refuse to discuss what happened during that trip, but the cabin remains listed for rent. Some say strange things still happen there, especially during the holidays. It was New Year's Eve, and the excitement was palpable. Rachel had spent weeks planning her party, ensuring every detail was perfect, from the champagne glasses to the glowing string lights that adorned her spacious apartment. The guest list included close friends and a few co-workers, but as the night unfolded, Rachel noticed someone she didn't recognize. The stranger was a man in his mid-30s, dressed impeccably in a black suit. He blended into the crowd with ease, chatting politely with guests and sipping a drink. Rachel initially assumed he was a +1, brought along by one of her co-workers, and paid him little attention. As midnight approached, the countdown began. The room buzzed with laughter and cheers as everyone raised their glasses to toast the new year. Rachel scanned the crowd, catching glimpses of her guests, hugging and celebrating, but the stranger was nowhere to be seen. It wasn't until she began cleaning up later that she noticed something odd. In one corner of the room, an untouched champagne flute stood on the windowsill. Next to it was a photograph taken earlier in the evening with a vintage Polaroid camera. Rachel picked it up, expecting to see a group shot of her friends, but froze when she examined the picture. There, in the background, was the stranger. His face was unusually pale, his eyes almost uncomfortably intense, staring directly into the camera. Unsettled, Rachel began asking her guests about him. None of them knew who he was. "I thought he was your friend," one co-worker said. Another guest swore they hadn't seen anyone matching his description. Puzzled but exhausted, Rachel dismissed it as a misunderstanding until the next day. While scrolling through the digital photos on her phone, Rachel noticed something chilling. The stranger appeared in multiple shots, always in the background, always staring directly at the lens. In one picture, he seemed much closer to the camera than she remembered. It was as if he had moved while the photos were being taken, though no one had seen him do so. Determined to find answers, Rachel decided to revisit her guest list. She combed through every name, texting and calling anyone who might have brought an uninvited guest. No one claimed responsibility. She even reached out to her building's security team, asking if they could check the footage from the lobby that night. When she finally received the recording, her heart sank. The footage showed her guests arriving throughout the evening, laughing and chatting as they entered the elevator. But when Rachel scanned the tape for the stranger, she found nothing. There was no record of him entering the building at any point during the night. As the days passed, Rachel couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Her apartment, once filled with warmth and laughter, now felt cold and unwelcoming. Late at night, she would hear faint knocks at her door, but when she checked, no one was there. On one occasion, she woke up to find the Polaroid photograph, now with the stranger's face completely blurred, sitting on her kitchen counter, though she was certain she had thrown it away. Weeks later, while sharing the story with a friend, Rachel learned a disturbing piece of history about her building. Decades earlier, a man had fallen to his death from one of the upper floors during a New Year's party. He was said to have been a reclusive tenant, rarely seen by others, but always impeccably dressed in a black suit. Rachel moved out of the apartment shortly after, unable to endure the lingering sense of unease. To this day, she avoids attending New Year's parties, haunted by the memory of the guest who may have never left. As the stories unfold, one theme becomes clear. The holiday season, with all its warmth and celebration, can also be a time when the veil between the ordinary and the extraordinary feels remarkably thin. Perhaps it's the quiet stillness of winter nights, or the heightened emotions that come with gatherings and nostalgia. Whatever the reason, these tales remind us that even the most festive moments can carry a hint of mystery. The three stories you've just heard, of the Ouija board, the mountain cabin, and the uninvited New Year's guest are not just spine-chilling anecdotes. They reflect our deep, collective fascination with the unknown. Could there be more to the holiday season than meets the eye? While skeptics may dismiss these accounts as coincidence or imagination, others might wonder if the spirit of the holidays can sometimes attract other kinds of spirits. But these tales aren't just meant to entertain. They're a reminder to stay curious and open to the unexplainable. After all, it's often in the quiet, overlooked corners of our lives that the extraordinary happens. Perhaps you felt it too. A sudden chill, a flicker of lights, or the sense that you're not entirely alone. Maybe it's just your mind playing tricks, or maybe, just maybe, it's something more. Now it's your turn. Have you ever experienced something strange during the holidays? Share your story in the comments below. We'd love to hear about it. And if you've enjoyed these eerie tales, be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration into the unknown. As you prepare for this year's festivities, remember, the holidays are a time for joy, love, and togetherness, but also perhaps for the unexpected. Stay safe and happy holidays, if you dare.